Okay, so I'll tell you about the books and think about which one you might want to pick, and then head over to the Google Doc and sign up for a slot that's available. In this literature circle, our second literature circle, we'll be reading chapter books. So first one we read picture books. This time we'll read chapter books. And we are not going to use roles. So first literature circle, we used roles. We talked about how those can help us and students, and how sometimes they can maybe get in the way a little bit, both for us and for students. And so we are going to get to do both experiences, and you'll get to sort of weigh those and see sort of what you think. We will have some structure for your notes and your preparation, but it just won't be a formal role. Okay, so just knowing that you're just signing up for a slot, you're not signing up for a role. Okay, so I want to tell you about these books. I love them all. First, I'm going to show you about 3 that are not on the choices. I went back and forth about which I should put on here, and I changed them a little bit each semester. So I want to tell you about 3 great books that you can't choose, but again, you can read all these books. They're all great books. One that you've probably seen in schools is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right? Huge, by Jeff Kinney. Huge, 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 huge. Kids love it. You'll see that it is written sort of part graphic novel, right? It's really funny. It's actually really interesting. In the past, though, I've found that students have a hard time having rich discussion about it. I don't think that kids do, but I think that we do. We sort of forget just how much there is to talk about in a book like this. So I would encourage you to read it because it will connect you to a lot of kids in your lives and a lot of your future students, but it's not a choice. Sorry. Also, a really great book is called Hoot. Sorry, I'm covering up the title, by Carl Hyacin, I think is how you say his name. He's an adult author and a kid's author. He writes books that have really good environmental themes. Hoot's been made into a film. You may have seen it. He writes books like he's written Chomp and Scat, and there's some other ones, right? They're sort of all about animals and in the environment. So that might be one that you're interested in. Not a choice, though. And then the third one that I put on sometimes is The Lightning Thief. And it's the first in the Percy Jackson series. Kids also are, again, really, really, really excited about the Percy Jackson series. Some of these are also being made into films by Rick Riordan. It's a lot about mythology, right? So if you are a person who likes fantasy and mythology, this might be a book for you. But I'm sorry, I've taken it off the choices for this semester. Okay, so just know those are good books if you're looking for books. Now, ta-da, our choices. Okay. The first choice is called Esperanza Rising by Pamela Munoz Ryan. It's fabulous. It is a story of a girl named Esperanza who is born in Mexico in a pretty wealthy family. And then something happens. I'm not going to tell you what, but something happens, a little bit of a tragedy in her family. And she ends up immigrating to the States and working as a migrant worker. And so suddenly this sort of fancy life that she had of servants and all of this middle and upper class existence has been really reversed. And she has to sort of deal with that. So it's her experience as a migrant worker, and it's her experience sort of crossing those class lines, coming to a different country. Really powerful, lots of symbolism, lots of emotion. And if you're not sort of familiar with the experience of, of people who come into this country, especially those who come across the border, maybe without documentation, this might be a good book for you. Okay. Second book, we're just going in alphabetical order here. It's called Faith, Hope, and Ivy June by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. She wrote Shiloh. She wrote a bunch of other stuff that kids really like. I find this book really lovely. I thought it was going to be too cutesy, and I don't find it that way at all. I find it really meaningful. It is the story of 2 girls who participate in sort of an exchange program. They live in 2 very different parts of the state. I think they're from Kentucky, although there's a lot of similarities to North Carolina. One of the girls lives in a very rural area, and one of the girls lives in a town and bigger city. And so it's about what they learn from each other, about the prejudices they have about the other person's way of living and place of living, and how they sort of try to cross difference and get to know each other anyway. It's written in part through journal entries. I don't know if I can find one. So if that's something that's interesting to you, part of it's journal entries and part of it isn't. But again, it's sort of if you're interested in anything about rural experiences, if you're interested in how people make friendships across difference, if you're interested in class, if you're interested in like mining and sort of that sort of the ways that rural issues and environmental issues intersect, this might be a book for you. This book is called Home of the Brave. It's by Catherine Applegate. I know the cover is a little bit unusual, and I don't want to let that turn you off. It's really, really, really interesting. So again, a little bit picking up on some themes that we've seen already. But this story is about a young boy who immigrates from Sudan, right? So he is born in Sudan in Africa, in East Africa, and he is a refugee because of the events going on in his country. And so he is placed through an agency in, I think it's in Minnesota. Yeah, in Minnesota. So here's this child who was raised in Sudan, and he comes and he doesn't have family. He has one brother or cousin that is already living in Minnesota, so that's why he goes there. And he is learning about things in the States and about things in northern environments for the first time, right? And so he's seeing snow, and he's trying to figure out what all of this American middle-class culture stuff is all about and how different it is than what he knows and how much he misses what he knows, even though he's glad for this opportunity. And so it really helps you see a lot of what we're very familiar with through very new eyes. And it's beautifully written, really, really interesting. So if you're interested in issues of refugees, if you're interested in issues of immigration, and if you're interested in sort of seeing through new ways, this might be a really good book for you, sort of discovering what it really is about America that is so powerful, even when there's a lot of things that can be really challenging for people who are new to this country. And the reason there's a cow on the cover is because maybe like 14 Cows for America, you know that particular peoples have particular connections to different animals, right? And so he is really actually spent a lot of time around cows. And so that's one thing that makes him feel like he's a little bit home is he sees cows not too far from where he lives in his new place in Minnesota. And that connection is one thing that he has that really sort of makes him feel a little bit more secure in this new place. So that factors into the story. Okay, so about halfway done. All right, now look at this. Can you see this? This is a big book. This is one of your choices. It's called The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. It is a very, very big book. However, it is about, I don't know, a third or half pictures. All right. And fabulous, amazing, interesting, detailed, very, very cool pictures. Okay. The book is about Hugo Cabret, who is an orphan, and he lives in Paris in a train station. Right. It's about his adventures, but it's really about sort of his search for who he is and who he wants to be. And it's not quite a mystery, but there's a lot that's mysterious about it, right? If you like visual things, right, so there's definitely some text too, but if you like visual things, if you like movies, if you like visualizing stories, if you like having those kinds of pictures to help you see how a story works, then this might be a book for you. There's a lot of symbolism in here, so if you like to hunt for symbolism, if you like to think about, well, wait a minute, why was the author using that choice? Wait, what's the pattern there? What's the choice, right? There's a lot of sort of hidden meanings. If you like to look for hidden meanings, this book is a lot deeper than sometimes it appears on first read. So think about how those visuals work, how those shapes work, what sort of the author is trying to say by including all of this visual information. I'll give you a hint. There's a lot about movies in here, and you can already see how in some ways this book is working like a movie, right? And actually it was just made into a movie, a film called Hugo, I think a year or two ago. So if you're a visual person or if you like mystery, if you like movies, this might be a book for you. Next choice is called Locomotion by Jacqueline Woodson. She is one of my favorite authors. She wrote The Other Side, which some of you read for our literature circle in the first one, the picture book. She's written all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things. She's just winning new awards with one of her new books called Brown Girl Dreaming. But this is called Locomotion. It's rather short, and you might be able to see that it's actually written in verse, right? So it's poems. It's about a boy named Lonnie Collins Motion, so Locomotion. And he has some real tragedies in his life, right? He is 11 years old at the time of the book, but when he's 7, something happens to his family, and he has to go into foster care. And so it's his story of kind of coming to know himself and coming to sort of his like coming of age story kind of, because his teachers help him find poems, and he learns to be a writer, and he learns to sort of make sense of his experiences and his world through his writing, right? It's lovely. It's a little bit of text and a whole lot of meaning and a whole lot of emotion, right? So how he sort of makes sense of his world based on his writing. It's really lovely. If you're a person who likes that sort of emotional impact, if you like to think about the world through children's eyes, this might be a book for you. It's really powerful. Another great one, Totally Joe by James Howell. If you've read The Misfits, I don't know if you have or you've heard of it, this is a companion book to The Misfits, which is also a great book. Totally Joe is one of the ones that, if you've heard me talk about Marie's class, the class that I sometimes do research with, and some of you have seen some of their written work that we talked about a little bit in class, they have read this book and loved it. So these are all really popular with kids. So. But Totally Joe is awesome. The protagonist of Totally Joe is Joe Bunch, who is a 7th grader, and he is openly gay. And it's his sort of, they call it an alpha biography. His teacher gives them an assignment where he has to write, this is sort of the introduction. He has to write about his life with different letters. You know how we do the ABC book as one of the options for your reading synthesis? It's kind of like that. So he has A is for, and then writes about it. And then there's B is for, and it goes through the alphabet like that. Joe is hilarious. He is witty, and he's funny, and he's sassy, and he has all kinds of interesting thoughts about growing up and middle school and who we are and who we want to be and who we tell people we are and all kinds of things. So if you're interested in really like sassy characters, if you're interested in really, really memorable characters, then Totally Joe might be a book for you. Last but not least, also extremely memorable characters. This is Wonder, right, by R.J. Palacio. It's amazing. These are all amazing, but this book is amazing. The protagonist of this book, also very memorable, is a boy named Augie. Yeah, boy named Augie, and he has a really extreme facial deformity. Right, so that's sort of what you're kind of seeing on the cover. The back of it says, "I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse." Right, so the book is told in part from Augie's point of view, but also from other characters' points of view. So you'll see different sections are told by different characters. Okay. And so we hear about what life is like when your physical form and your physical shape look so different than so many other people's, right? So it really sort of explains what life is like, right? And how Augie sort of learns to function, and what other people do to him and for him and with him, and how he sort of learns to, you make the best of that and ignore some of the downsides and really sort of, again, grow up, in the body that he has, and sort of in some ways even appreciate the body that he has, but we won't go too far. So if you're interested in people with special needs, if you're interested in disability work, if you're interested in any sort of advocacy around those topics or understanding people who have some physical challenges, this might be a good book for you. Again, a lot of bullying, although that sort of comes up in some of these other texts as well. But really, I think, again, sort of a strong emotional punch to this book. And again, kids are obsessed. Really, really, really like it. So again, Augie, Joe, Lonnie, Esperanza, a lot of really memorable characters in these choices here. So that's it. You've got Esperanza Rising, Faith, Hope, and Ivy June, Home of the Brave, The Invention of Hugo Cabret, Locomotion, Totally Joe, and Wonder. I hope you find something you love. I hope you read all of them at some point. So head to the Google Doc and sign up. All right. Good luck. Have fun. Surprise, you have one more choice. This is The Popularity Papers by Amy Ignatow. You might see that the subtitle is Research for the Social Improvement and General Betterment of Lydia Goldblatt and Julia Graham-Chang. So this is going to be in place of Wimpy Kid, right? So it's kind of a graphic novel format. It's really fun. And basically the format is this sort of diary project of these two girls who are about to go into middle school, and they decide they better figure out how to be popular. So they do this kind of anthropological experiment documenting what it takes to be popular. And it's sort of all about their antics. Really interesting. I haven't ever used this before, but I'm going to try it this semester and see how it goes. So one additional choice if that sounds good to you. Again, now you can head over to the Google Doc and sign up.